everyone, my name is Natalie. Today I wanted to do the first nonfiction recommendations video that I promised, and today I'm going to talk about some art and essay related nonfiction books that I have enjoyed and that I would strongly recommend if you're interested in this topic. So art is obviously a very broad topic. I'm interpreting it as a fairly broad term, so I'll talk about different types of art in this video. But I'll start off talking about design, and specifically sort of interior design and that kind of thing, and two Japanese books that I have read partly on the subject is first In Praise of Shadows by Junichiro Tanizaki, and this was translated by Edward Seidensticker and Thomas J. Harper. This is a very brief essay on the aesthetics of Japanese design, particularly when it comes to embracing shadows and light and dark and sort of the inherent beauty in items as they are naturally, and sort of the way that items fit together. And I thought this was really interesting from a aesthetic and artistic point of view, but it's also a really beautifully written essay. And on a similar topic is The Beauty of Everyday Things by Soetsu Yanagi, and this was translated by Michael Brace, and this I have not finished yet, but I have really enjoyed what I've read of it so far. And this one is talking about the design of items and physical things, specifically utensils and tools and things that are part of our everyday life, and the beauty in them from their usefulness perspective. So it's for me, it's a very sort of pragmatic, practical view on physical materials and things that we have to use on a daily basis. He talks specifically about beauty in items that serves their function to the utmost, and where there's no extra functions or no extra things added to an item that doesn't serve a purpose. So it's a very scaled down, minimalist type of attitude towards things and materials, and I found this to be very thought-provoking, especially with sort of minimalist movements and things like that, and taking care of our resources more. Next we have a trilogy on writing as a craft, and that is The Living Autobiography by Deborah Levy. So the first one in the series is Things I Don't Want to Know, and the second one is The Cost of Living, and thirdly we have Real Estate. I love this trilogy a lot, and what I love in particular is how she talks about the craft of writing for her, the process of becoming an author, of finding the stories that she wanted to tell, of finding the way to convey those stories, to find her voice. I particularly love, from a writing perspective, I love The Cost of Living the most, which is the second in the trilogy. On a sort of connected theme, we have writing on reading and on the writing craft as well, and that is Not to Read by Alejandro Zambra, and translated by Megan McDowell. This is an essay collection talking about all things related to books, so both the reading experience and things from a reader's perspective, like the collecting of books, the annotations of a reader, the different interpretations and all of those things, but also he does talk about the craft of writing as well, and creating stories, and reading as a writer. And there's just so many interesting things in this. I have recommended this one so many times because it was one of my favorite books the year I read it in, which I think was 2020, and I annotated so much in this because there's just so many really interesting topics that he touches on, so many things that are worth considering from a reader's perspective, but also if you are someone who have writer ambitions, then I think you will also find inspiration in this. There's a lot of things in this that I found very fun to discuss with other readers as well. Next we have one of this year's favorites for me, and that is The Lonely City, Adventures in the Art of Being Alone by Olivia Lang, and this one is more specifically on art in terms of painters. She is sort of looking at loneliness as a theme and finding things to reflect on in these artists' lives and in their body of work. It's very interesting to see her analysis and how she is thinking about this topic and seeing various strands of thought and emotions in the works that she is observing. I think this is just sort of a very well-rounded book that has so many things going for it. Next we have another art-related book. This is on animation. It is Starting Point, 1979 to 1996, translated by Beth Carey and Frederick Elshot. This is an essay collection by Hayao Miyazaki, who is the founder and creator of Studio Ghibli, and he is such a legendary animator and artist, and this is a collection of his essays and interviews and speeches. So it's a very a varied mix of sources that the text in this comes from, and he talks about various topics related to his craft, but I think there's just so many interesting things in this. Again, this is one I haven't finished, but I've enjoyed following his thought process and his working process so much from what I've read of it so far. I think if you're an aspiring animator or artist, then there's definitely a lot of food for thought in terms of, as I said, his process, but also he shares so many of his values and how he sort of confronts his work and the things that he's trying to, his aspirations, what he is trying to do with his work. That is just very inspiring, and also puts a lot of things related to his movies into context. Then we have a very brief book on art, and that is On Contemporary Art by Cesar Era, and this was translated by Catherine Silver. This is similar to On Light and Shadow by Junichiro Tanizaki in that it is a short essay that's just published as it is, and it is very reflective and thought-provoking, and packs a punch in its very short format of writing. This one is, as the title suggests, on contemporary art, and he talks about the borders, what we consider art in the first place, what the term contemporary means in terms of art, what the crafts definitions are, how art ages, and sort of all of the context-based things related to our interpretation of art. Also about the interpretation from sort of the spectator to the art piece and everything that goes on in between. There's just so many things, again, that I found so thought-provoking in this, and Cesar Era is a fantastic writer that the topic and his way of describing his thoughts is just a perfect combination. So I would recommend also checking out the series that this book is included in. It's Ekphrasis is the series name. They have a lot of these very short books on various topics related to art, written by different authors. So if you like this sort of a brief format on art-related writing, then I would definitely recommend checking the catalog out as well. Next we have a dance-related book, and that is Winter Season by Toni Bentley, A Dancer's Journal, and this is from a ballerina's perspective. It is about her craft again, so this is a kind of this is more of a personal story of being a professional ballet dancer, everything that goes into that, both the positives and negatives. But also one of the things that I found particularly interesting is the being someone who lives for their art, and how a profession like this can become so totally captivating of your life and your time and your energy, so that it becomes sort of the core factor of your everyday. That it is not just a job, but a lifestyle and a purpose. And I think those things comes through in this book, and the passion, but also some of the things that having this type of occupation costs for the individual who puts so much into it. There's in ballet in particular, I find that it's very interesting to see the behind the scenes, because ballet is for the viewer so effortless and weightless and beautiful and surreal and ethereal, whereas of course the work itself can be very hard, and it can mean a lot of hardship on the body. Aside from the hardship of the mind, of course. And I think this is just very beneficial if you want to get a glimpse into the production of all of those beautiful beautiful performances, and understanding how they got there. I'm someone who really enjoys reading behind the scenes stuff in general, and I think it always adds to my appreciation of the performance and the finished thing. Lastly, we have a book on photography, and that is On Photography by Susan Sontag. She reflects on everything related to this form of art. In the first place, she starts off with discussing whether photography is to be considered an art form, and there's been different opinions related to this over the years, that photography has been possible and been a craft and an activity to do. So there is definitely really interesting discussions on those definition and borders for what is considered art, and whether that is, for example, hindered by the fact that a lot of people can participate in it, and how much you create versus how much is already done for you. All those borders and definitions and interpretations that we have of things. But also she talks about the different uses of photography, for documenting things, to conveying beauty and being more of an aesthetic thing, to being part of a resistance to movements, and to bring attention to be more journalistic. So there is just a lot of interesting discussions. I think she brings out a lot of difficult questions that she doesn't necessarily even provide answers for, and I found that to be a very enjoyable reading experience, to sort of ponder those things with her and follow her train of thought and analytical process on this topic. If you, again, are similarly enjoying that type of reading experience where you are questioning things that you might have taken for granted when it comes to the topic of photography, then I would add this to your list. So those are the books that I wanted to bring your attention to and recommend for you for art-related essay type stuff, nonfiction, for Nonfiction November. I hope you're all having a fantastic Nonfiction November so far, and that you're having a good day, and I will talk to you soon. Bye!